Today's guest is Maya Irizarry, founder of Solutions by Maya. All right, Maya, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, so we have connected. You remember better than me in person, but also online. I was really intrigued with, you were talking about EQ, your background. You have, quite a deep background in different things, entrepreneurial
Yeah,
and construction related, roofing. So I'm curious to hear from you because you kind of have a diverse background.
absolutely. I'm excited to dive in.
Great. So where should we start? I mean, you started, it looks like in health, sort of roofing. You had some entrepreneurial ventures. Um, what I'm always curious, people that sort of go into entrepreneurial ventures and they have jobs and they go back. What were you like sort of growing up? Or what were your early thoughts of what you thought your career was going to be?
Well, I always knew that I wanted to help people. I grew up in a family of educators, so everyone taught in school at some level. My grandfather was a high school driver's ed. He taught wood shop. He years prior to that, he's actually 97 years old,
Wow.
and he's still driving cross country. He's a snowbird from South Florida to Connecticut, and it's pretty impressive. But he had his own mechanic shop and suffered, I guess, lead poisoning, which made him go the safe route and become a teacher. Um, Eventually, through his teachings, this was in Long Island, New York, and so I saw examples of him. And it's funny because I never really looked at, you mentioned roofing, as something that I understood very well. But then when I started working in it, I remembered moments when I would climb a ladder to my grandfather's roof, and he would replace shingles on the house. But he was always handy, and had the opportunity to see how he was able to take simple tasks and do them himself. He liked to do woodworking and things like that, and metal work, and it always stuck with me, that you can build things yourself. You don't have to always acquire them. I never got into wood shop myself, but I really appreciated the work that he did.
For sure. So the question that sort of popped up in my head is 97 and still seems very healthy, driving. I
Playing
mean,
tennis.
playing tennis. I
Yep.
mean, from being around him, what do you think the secret is?
Being Staying active.
Okay.
Always, constantly moving. When you stay still and you stop putting in effort, and you don't, he always reads books, he always does the morning crossword puzzle, uh, keeping your mind sharp. It's funny because I was thinking about what would we talk about, and how would this kind of go today, and I was thinking of the 7 habits of highly effective people. And I used to drive my son crazy because when he was in elementary school, they had this program called The Leader in Me. And it was based off of the 7 habits, but Franklin Covey made it for children in elementary settings, and they were a certified school for that Leader in Me program. And anything that my son would do that I wanted to reinforce, or anything he'd do that I would want to recommend, I would associate with the habits, right? Because if I'm just nagging as a mom, it doesn't help, because they'll just drown my voice out. But maybe they'll think win-win, or begin with the end in mind, or sharpen the saw, or synergize, and use these things towards how they could, be better. And as much as he hated it, it's now become habit to associate those kinds of things. But when you ask me that question about my grandfather, it's true. His motto is to stay active and keep your mind sharp, and being around people you care about. And so I guess that's community, right?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a cool story about your son. Out of the seven habits, you mentioned a bunch of them. Which one resonates with you the most strongly?
Um, I always think begin with the end in mind. I think that's how I approach business.
Sure.
That's how I
You know,
consult.
sure. Give me some specific examples of things that you've done, or where you'd start with the end in mind.
So I didn't see going into work and my career as becoming entrepreneurial. It was more associated with how can I make a contribution? I knew that I didn't want to be a teacher because only because I couldn't sit in a classroom all day. That exhausted me. I went to work with my mom before, and I couldn't understand how they would go through the periods of the day. And I was exhausted by the end of the day and didn't do much. So I knew right away that that wasn't for me. But going into things, I always wanted to make an impact. If I can help someone in the process, I'd always see what is that thing that I want to go into, and it's always helping something in the process. So if I could share or impart my knowledge, I always like learning so that I can share it.
Yeah. So, from what you're doing now, what do you focus on in terms of contributing or helping?
So right now, I'm fortunate enough. I've been out on my own with Solutions by Maya, my consulting advisory firm, and I help business owners identify the areas that hold them back from being great. When I worked for other companies, I was an intrapreneur where I would take and take a hold of their vision and model all of my behaviors that would make an impact to the bottom line. I didn't know I was doing that. I just thought, hey, we don't have systems and processes. This is how this works step by step. Wouldn't it be easier for my new employees that come aboard, or my peers, to do it better or to work better together if we have a system behind it? And naturally, I just led in this fashion, not trying to be, some people associate that with being bossy, but I I really associate it with being helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of saying, here's my job description, this is what I'm doing, you just kind of took a step back and say, where's the need? How can I be of assistance?
Always. And I do it through the work, and then I've always grown in my roles to leadership because I was always focused on how could we make that contribution.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, from human resources IT to administration, you just started to just work on things that need to be done.
Absolutely. I knew the CEO's vision, and I would see the opportunity and not wait to be asked. I would usually bring it forward, and most of the time, I already had a solution in mind, and it would work in my favor in the end.
Yeah. I know one of the things I see you speak about is uh, EQ. I guess that's part of this.
Yes, soft skills.
Yeah. So to walk me through that, let's say, you're a business owner that kind of knows that they need to work on their skills. Where do they start? How do they improve?
So there are a lot of people in their mindset is, and especially now we have all the different generations in the workplace. And so you've got the Gen Z all the way tracing back to the boomers that are trying to retire out of the workforce or find their successors in the workforce. And there's a stigma that you have to pay your dues because I did. You have to figure it out because I did. Not everyone works this way, but there are some people who say it needs to be earned, not necessarily if you want the information, you're going to have to find it. As opposed to a lot of the times I approach a lot of the businesses with the idea of predictability. How great would it be if we could create predictability? Because a lot of us are getting so caught up in our emotions or personalities that we're forgetting about the functions. And so if we can make the functions predictable and then integrate the people piece into that, that would be better. However, in integrating that people piece, we also have to have compassion and we have to have a care to wanting to know what the people piece is all about, how people tick, and not have the impatience of just wanting to get something done for the sake of achieving whatever goal we have. Yes, that's why we hire people. However, how do we keep people? How do they stay part of our culture? How do they feel motivated? How do we improve the morale? There has to be some kind of growth that they feel, but what kind of growth do they want? What kind of, we talk about incentives in the workplace, and what incentivizes people? Is it being there or having a sense of work life balance? What is it? But if we don't have care or interest in the people that are coming in, and understanding that yes, they may have the skill set, but also what behaviors follow that, then we're not going to achieve even half of what we want because we're not listening ourselves.
Got it. And it sounds like it's not a linear process. It's
No,
ongoing, lots of work, and you're not doing it right unless, it's difficult.
it is difficult work, but it's very rewarding at the same time. There's so many small wins that come along the way, and there are reminders of these things. We have to remind ourselves of the small wins. But first, it's building that beginning with the end in mind. We have to have some sort of roadmap that we construct to figure everything, um, in terms of what we're hoping to achieve. Now, is that route going to change? Well, sometimes, when we're driving towards a destination, sometimes there's an accident and we have to take a detour. So things happen along the way, and we have to reevaluate, adjust, and sometimes the circumstances cause us to reevaluate that maybe what we thought in the first place wasn't the true result or outcome that we would have achieved until we tried it. And then maybe another resource would be better. Um, AI is a great example. People are adjusting every day to how to use AI to help them. But in one of my roles, one of my responsibilities was to create trainings, and in the trainings, time management was one of the trainings to help people uh, apply their focus effectively, relieve stress, create some predictability, right? And you always say when with time management is you want to either schedule it when you know you have the time to actually do it. You want to either delegate or automate those three areas. So it's the same application for how you approach anything else. You want to make it systematic so that it's repeatable.
Yeah. Now, repeatability, I love that. And you mentioned early on about, working at a company that, you understood the leader's vision and you were able to sort of work into that. Vision is sometimes very nebulous. It's hard for people to sort of promote or become crystal clear on it. I mean, what is, a company leader, what can they do to sort of effectively communicate that and make sure that there's alignment there?
So a lot of people, they'll see phrase words kind of all over on signs around a company, core values, mission statements, and everyone thinks if you're in business, you need your mission, vision, values. I provide a program called the Prioritize Leader, and it's videos with workbooks that allow me to facilitate CEOs and leadership teams together to get them calibrated on the same pace. Because where a leader is giving a message or delivering a message, it doesn't mean that it's received how they delivered it. And so that goes back to the emotional intelligence. Read your room. Do you know that people understood what you tried to say? Do they really live those values the way you've stated them? Or are they just superficial, generic for your customers to see that we've got it together here?
Yeah, for sure. It's basically, just be the best example you can be day in and day out.
And the awareness at the same time. I did a webinar for NRCA. It's strategies for operational excellence. It's on their website. You can see the replay, and it emphasized the organizational part of things, but understanding about messaging and the language you speak goes beyond just the words you say or use, but it becomes a language, the common language among your employees. What is the language you speak internally? What is the language that you speak to your customers? How does it stay consistent in the process? Because then when it's consistent, that's how your brand it evolves, right? Your customers know you for a certain delivery or certain experience or a certain way that they know to receive something. And if everyone's speaking, that goes back to the predictability, right? On the same terms, then you've established something special.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many touch points that people don't even consider that could, sort of communicate something. I guess
Yeah,
the attention to detail to all the different ways people interact, whether it's different platforms or otherwise, I guess just watching those very carefully and managing those is part of it.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's another thing. We always say, "Oh, you're the CEO, you should know," right? You should know all things, but CEOs have advisory boards, right? They have people that they go to, people that they feel are their mentors or know are subject matter experts that they go to get information. They don't know all the pieces to the puzzle, but you have to be searching for the information as a leader in order to grow. And if you're learning, then you're imparting better habits with your teams. If you're not learning and you're just providing instruction day in and day out based on past historical reference, then like AI, you're going to get left behind because you always need to know what's coming so that you can sharpen your saw.
Yeah, you mentioned advisory boards. What do you think possible composition for our advisory board should be? What type of individuals do they complement? Do you factor in where you're weekend? Like, what are some ideas around who or what type of people should be on advisory board?
Well, there are a lot of people who CEOs who join Vistage, for instance, peer groups that allow them to not only get different perspectives, it's not always in the same industry, so that you can also understand the state of things. Like right now, a lot of roofing companies are saying, "What's going on?" As much as we don't want the destruction of a storm, but there's an industry that thrives off of storms. So right now, people are waiting and wondering and starting to question themselves, am I in the right business? Well, definitely roofing isn't going anywhere because everyone needs them. However, you go back to ground zero again. So it's good to hear with other industries if they're experiencing certain things during the seasons that you're experiencing them, so that you can understand, is this economic, is this industry specific, how does this affect the overall, if they're having issues with staffing employees, is it just me how I'm handling the issue, or is this industry wide? Are we finding that maybe we need to approach things differently because the way we've always done it is not yielding the same results as it did before.
Sure. And
And
sometimes
so
you just want to know
yeah,
that you're not the only one dealing with it, not
right.
necessarily looking for an answer.
Right. So the advisory board, yeah, that gives them comfort. It's also mental wellness. Um, and it's reassurance, but also those people who challenge you. You need people who will challenge what you're saying when you get in your feelings and you're saying, "Oh, there's no work right now. Will it ever come back?" Or how, to snap you out of it to staying productive and staying on course. So I think it takes different individuals who would make up that advisory board, but they all should be professionals in their own right, and they should be people that you respect, and people who are thinking on course. Because the worst thing you could do is sit among peers who commiserate, and then you leave feeling better because you feel like people are relating, but it's not bettering your business at all.
There you go. I like that. Is there anything that I have not asked you but you wanted to share?
Um, Not that I can think of right now.
No, it's great. I mean, leadership and all this, it's a large area. I definitely liked your EQ topic.
I have another topic
Yes,
that I've been sharing because a lot of people are challenged with hiring people.
yes,
Something that I speak about at a lot of different events, and it's that you're not hiring a resume. It's the 5 C's of building strong teams. It's an excerpt of a bigger session within my Prioritized Leader program, but the 5 C's when you are interviewing or vetting, first and foremost, you want to have a job description that falls in line with the KPIs, understanding what you want someone to deliver on that you're looking to hire, not just resolving the tasks of the day, just really understanding what does this role, if I'm hiring for it, deliver on, and what return does it provide to me as a company to make this investment in additional headcount and salary.
yeah.
And
So
so,
would that C be competence?
say that again.
You said there's 5 C's. So what's the first C?
One of them is, but the first one is competence. Yes, the ability to do the work. The second one would be no, sorry, that was the second one. You took me off course.
Sorry, my
The
fault.
first one, no, the first one is character. You want to
Mm,
understand that people will do what they say, and that they have experiences through questions that allow you to understand their character. How does one do or approach the things that they do, and how does that fall in line with your values at the company? So do they have the character to do the work, the competence, the skill set, and the capability to do the work, the capacity to stretch? I like to look at people above and beyond what I'm hiring for and ask questions up front that allow me to get an indication of me knowing where I want the company to go, or where the client I'm working with wants their company to go. I'm working with a client right now who is building on their inventory system. And so, if I'm interviewing and someone has previous inventory experience, I want to dig into that because we need someone who would champion that initiative. Someone in-house may be able to do it, but someone coming in could also help with championing that initiative depending on what area or role they're coming into. And so understanding where the company has opportunity and where people can stretch with their capacity really, really helps. And when people are interviewing, a lot of times it's out of need, right? So a lot of times it's when we're on fire that that we execute, right? Unfortunately, and it's on the spot. So a lot of leaders are just scheduling it, but they're not properly planning for it. And so the better we get about asking the questions and being prepared in that right allows us to really ask deeper questions and make better decisions. I feel like there's still a human component. It's human resources, right? They're human capital. But we have to make sure that we're still keeping that human component, because there are systems that you can, eliminate people through questioning. But I like to look at resumes and really see transferable skills, see where there may be relatable opportunities. And I have various stories that can prove great outcomes because of that. I never worked in roofing, and when I entered the roofing industry, and all I knew was that it kept you dry. Then I learned all of the components later on because I had to build the learning. But that I had to learn later. You can be taught if you have the ability to transfer skills, right? So we went to the third, right? That was capacity. Chemistry. How did the people fit with your existing team members? How is that team chemistry going to work for you?
How do you test that before you hire them?
So I like to use the DISC assessment. It allows me to assess people's behaviors, their motivators and driving forces. There are different versions of the DISC. The one I use, I'm certified through TTI Success Insights, and I do a report that includes the motivators and driving forces. So it's about a 40-page report. However, the things I look at are the value to the organization, how that lines up with the need in the role, how does that solve or help. And I don't judge the report for the report. It just allows me to ask questions during the interview that that is relevant. So the value to the organization, um, what drives them, what fills their cup. There are 12 driving forces, but four fill people's cup. So if they're selfless and they want to help for the sake of helping, but this is a sales job, we need a maybe somebody who is looking for personal gain, not just to help for the sake of helping, or needs to be directed that that's what we're looking for to be able to help most effectively, right? Not to waste time or resources. So seeing those kinds of things that they actually enjoy activities that allow them to do these things is an indicator, and I get to ask more questions about that. It has strengths, potential weaknesses, energizers, stressors. I learned in the corporate world later on, before I went out on my own, I started to assess what activities are stressing me, what activities are energizing me. I learned how to effectively delegate because of that. And I taught people how to do the things that maybe were my responsibility as a vice president, but they were tasks, right? So, how do you delegate among team members to keep everyone excited and to also empower other team members to learn and grow in their own right
Yeah,
based on what energizes them? And so that's an example. And then I'll ask questions. For instance, someone's pace. DISC stands for the D is dominance, the I is influence, S is steadiness, and C is compliance or conscientiousness. And so there's someone who has a high green line, steadiness, and you need them to be mobile and they're steady. So they're adverse to change. So every time you want to implement something new, they're they're not able to handle that, and maybe the role requires innovation and movement and change, so that you would question that on an interview. You're very steady. How do you handle situations? It's more common that we encounter these things in this role, so help me understand or walk me through. Or maybe they don't have enough conscientiousness, analytical sense, that they might overlook something really important when, if this is accounting, we can't overlook certain things. And if you're very social, then maybe you belong in a business development role or activity where there's a lot of teamwork versus um, being in an analytical role, because there's the capability of doing the work. However, how would you excel at it?
yeah, very good. Well, there's so much to this, right? You could
Yeah,
probably talk for hours on the topic.
exactly. And I have one more C, and that's the course. So course is making sure that the values align with the work, with the company values, and the direction we're moving in. So your ambitions for where you're trying to go as a person in your own right and your growth as a professional is in line with what the company's trying to do. Now, if your role is just a seasonal role and you're looking for growth, then I would be doing a disservice to you. Maybe you want to show and prove and say, "Hey, I'm going to show them that they're going to want to hire me in a larger capacity." Then great. However, you have to understand where people want to go so that you can keep them engaged. And I'm sure you've seen the statistics, and they're very low where people are actually engaged in the workplace. So the more that we know about people and what fills their cup or what engages them, what motivates them, and we can couple it. And that, going back to the CEO understanding their messaging, that it's not about what they want to charge forward doing, and how they can cast that idea of achieving it as a team and everyone's contribution making a difference, and really taking an interest in knowing that the individual pieces will make up the whole. That's what's going to make the difference.
Yeah. Well, as you were explaining it, I was visualizing almost being like a sort of a job fit counselor kind of, directing instead of just, one track mind to fill the role.
And it's so funny because in my history, I out of college, I moved to Florida. I grew up in New York City. I went to high school in Brooklyn, on the Brooklyn College campus, and then and my grandmother had graduated from Brooklyn College, and then I went to college in Manhattan in Brooklyn College. My last year in college, 9/11 happened, and I was in the city that day. And so my mom had already moved to Florida. And so that last year was kind of dark for the whole city. And so when I graduated from college, as much as I thought I'd be a city girl, I ended up deciding to move to Florida and try my opportunity with a degree in hand and see what a new place would be like after 21 years in New York. And so I've been here since 2002, and different careers taught me different things that I have in my toolkit now to impart to others. So when you said as an advisor, I worked at colleges prior to roofing. I worked as an admissions counselor. And so part of that was learning how to interview people for what they're really trying to achieve, because when they enroll to school, that's not when it ends. They have to continue to attend in order to achieve that goal of getting their degree. So it's painting that picture from the front end. So I had that experience. And then I did some healthcare temporary staffing where I was an account manager and I grew to the director of sales, where we were placing therapists, PTOT, speech, and nurses in temporary assignments around the country, whether it's in hospitals, schools, home health agencies. So it's really understanding how to take the need that the employer had, but it was a need that was urgent, and then taking a temporary worker, somebody who's transient, and making it a match that allowed the right now to be okay. The person they had right now, because there was no one around to allow for proper billing, proper care, and all the rest.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that have careers and these roles and jobs seems random, but a lot of times when you go back and you kind of draw a thread through them and it all
Mhm.
makes sense at some point.
Yes,
So obviously you found what you love to do.
absolutely.
Maya, I mean, your wealth of information. Thank you for coming on and sharing it.
No, I appreciate the time and getting to know this podcast. I haven't had the opportunity to really engage with you, um, but seeing the stuff that you've posted in the past has been very helpful in understanding other people who are in the industry and really doing big things.